What's good, everybody? Happy Friday. Welcome to the Closing Beat. This is our update show where we talk about the stock market, let you know how things are going. You can kind of see how things are going on the screen as we go there, but we'll cover all that stuff. This is a show that we do daily at 5 o'clock. If you're one of our customers, we usually just keep you updated on the general markets. If you're not a customer, I hope you check us out at jazzwealth.com. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask if you're watching this live. If you look on the screen here, this is basically the major indices for the day. And then this down here is a 5-minute period by period throughout the day of how the markets did. We've been pointing that out a little bit lately because we want you to see the fluctuations are getting greater and greater throughout the day, meaning just the buying and selling back and forth is more interesting than it has been all summer. So we'll get to that. If I help you in some way, please hit the subscribe button. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but here we go. Let's see. We've got the top headlines of the day. I'm sure you saw by now Mr. Elon Musk from Tesla was on video smoking some weed on one of these podcasts, I believe Joe Rogan's podcast. So shares were lower on the day. We'll go look at those at the chart in a moment. But also, you know, what's interesting is, remember, he runs SpaceX. SpaceX makes money from the government. You're not allowed to be a government contractor or work with the government if you do these sort of drugs. So everybody's looking at Tesla, but think about it, that may affect SpaceX. So we'll see what happens there. But that's one of the major headlines that people focus on today. The video is out there. He was even drinking like whiskey or something. And, you know, hey, is it a big deal, right? If it's legal in that state, is it a big deal? Is it the best image for him? Let me know in the comments below. I think it's maybe not how you want to be portrayed. You know, with what little credibility these videos give me, I certainly wouldn't want to be caught stumped over the edge of a curb drinking out of something with cuts all over my body or something. Of course, you want to be perceived in the most reputable sense as possible. So maybe not something he should have done, but is it a big deal? Right? Is it just because of who he is? Is he required to be to a certain standard? Let me know in the comments below. Let me know what you think. The other headline in the news today was the economy added 201,000 jobs in August. Maybe that's not a big deal to you, but we were only supposed to add 191,000 jobs. Also, wages were higher. Average hourly wages were higher by almost 3%. And so that's a big deal. We're going to go over why, because that pushed the markets lower, actually. You would think that would push the markets higher. And also, next week, Wednesday, live here on YouTube at 8 o'clock, we're going to do a down and dirty open house to show you visually everything that you get if you decide to work with Jazz. Just kind of an open house. Bring your questions. We'll be sure to bring our answers. I'll stay as long as I have to make sure you guys have your questions answered. Okay, so I got that right. Let's move on. We're going to talk about the stock market here. You can see on the screen the Dow was lower on the day by 79. The S&P closed down 6. The Nasdaq, which really had the toughest week out of all of them, as far as I'm concerned, that was down on the day by 20. Now, if you notice on the chart over here, the stock market actually started lower, then started to recover. You could see it go above that red line. That's sort of the break-even part for the day. It was recovering, and then Trump came out and said, oh yeah, we've got more tariffs for China. I think it's $267 billion in tariffs, which I think now makes us have more tariffs to where China cannot respond. They can't say we'll match those tariffs because they don't export enough. I'm sorry, they don't import enough. So they can't play the tit for tat game. So it'll be really interesting what China does from going forward if this does become the case. I think it could get a little more nasty because China is going to have to do something with our bonds, use currencies. They're going to have to come up with something to fight back. And I highly suspect they will fight back. So when that came out, you see the stock market pushing a little bit lower there. So we'll go over to the charts, take a look at what's going on here. Here's the Dow on the screen. The Dow was largely untouched. It really wasn't that big of a deal. Everybody was focused on the S&P and the Nasdaq that they didn't so much even look at the Dow. It was sort of a quiet week for the Dow, in my opinion. The S&P, I love this pullback. If you are a short-term trader or you're someone who's just concerned about the long-term market, you look at the S&P and you go, okay, that's a normal pullback. That's a fair profit-taking pullback in the midst of an uptrend here, so you have no problem with that. And then you got the Nasdaq desperately trying to hang on to support. You may even hear that a few times in the media, that the Nasdaq is right on support. If this breaks go back and look at what happened in Netflix, you'll expect to see a very aggressive break of that support. But for now, everything seems borderline, but very, very close. So that's that. I want to point out bonds. Here we go. If you look at bonds today, the price of bonds went lower, which means the yields went higher. That's sort of confusing. We'll explain a little bit here. And also the price of notes, your short-term treasury notes, your 10s, 5s, and 2s, and even 3-month actually, notes were, the yields were higher on the day, meaning prices were lower. The reason for that, and it makes sense when you explained it, but if you look on the surface, you may not understand it. What happened was the jobs numbers came out good, right? We added 10,000 more jobs than expected, which, by the way, why doesn't anybody question that number? Why is it always a nice, perfect, round number and not some odd number? It's because it's a guess, right? If you look up how they come up with that number, it's just a guess, right? It's like Punxsutawney Phil, going to have more winter or more summer or whatever. They're just going to guess. So anyways, 10,000 more jobs than expected. Well, because of that, because of wage growth and all that positive economic news as far as employment is concerned, people go, oh, shoot, now the Fed will be able to raise rates faster. Well, if the Fed raises rates faster, that's going to slow the overall economy. That may slow the overall stock market. It could slow REITs. It could slow home builders, anything interest rate sensitive, utility stocks. And so investors go, wait a minute, if things are that good, the Fed may raise rates faster, which means these stocks may be headed lower, and bonds themselves may be headed lower in price, higher yield, and that's why you end up having such a sharp drop today in bonds. I expect it to be pretty active going forward because there's going to be a lot of question about bonds and in the rates going forward. So the 2-year note actually hit the highest rate that it's been at in over 10 years. Was it 10 years? Because it was 2008. Yeah, 2008, so that's 10 years. So a quick spike in interest rates. All you need to know today is if you focus on interest rates for anything in your business or whatever, quick spike up, you got some action there. So actually, we'll take a second. We'll go over to the home builders. So Pulte Homes, new lows. I believe that's new yearly lows for Pulte Homes. Dr. Horton is what I call it, down by 4% today. You had Lennar Homes. You get the feel. You get what's going on here. Why do I have like Facebook stuff coming through? You get the idea. Lennar Homes trading lower on the day. Those home builders, right? Those home builders moving lower, and so that's all interest rate related. Keep in mind the home builders already have higher costs. They already have higher labor costs, greater material costs, greater land costs. And all of a sudden, now they may have higher rates, which of course is going to hurt things a little bit. Okay, let's go to semiconductors. The semiconductors actually tried to recover a little bit, and they ended up closing near the lows. That beating of the semiconductors continues, and you continue to see it in names like CLAC. We talked about this one yesterday. KLA 10 Core a little bit lower, and some of the other ones as well. They're just going to continue to sell off, in my opinion, so not much you can do about that in the short term. Well, we talked about Tesla a little bit, so let's look at the stock. The stock closed down. It's now down almost 25% since Elon Musk tweeted that he had funding to take the company private. Not bad, right? So 25% down on that one. Now, the stock is down so far and so extended. Today, you could see it right here on the charts. You see a little bit of those counter trend players going, hey, that's a little overextended. I think I'd like to play for a bounce. And so you saw a little bit of that today. Bad news, the CEO, the company lost, who was it? Their human resources chief, the chief of accounting, as well as the vice president of communications. All those people are done with the company now. So while you maybe hear about the accounting officer on TV, look below the surface. These people are leaving left and right. A lot of heads of Teslas, a lot of the executives there. Broadcom is AVGO. So that stock reported earnings today. Earnings better than expectations. Revenues was essentially in line. And they said that they beat expectations due to the demand for data center related products. And so because of that, you get a 7.5% move today, erasing over 1 month's worth of losses. That's pretty interesting, in my opinion. So that's about all I can say about that one. And crude oil just a little bit higher on the day after selling off this week. You might want to, you point out. Volatility, remember, we pointed this out last week. We said when we go into September, volatility increases by 25%. You can already see it. Look, very slowly, volatility starting to pick up there, and we're just getting started here in the first week of September. What else do I have for you? Hey, the brokerage firms. What do we got? T. Rowe Price. So T. Rowe Price, their stock was down 5% today. Ameritrade down about 1% on the day. E-Trade Financial, they were lower yesterday. They led the way. Today down another 1% or 3.75%. And then let's see, IBKR. Interactive Brokers actually recovered towards the end of the day there, up 2%. But you have the basically the brokers, the public brokers, all taking a hit. That's just something that crossed my eye there while we were looking around. Ulta Salons continues to do really well. That's a retailer. CBS continues to do well. Remember, they're offering $100 million in a stock package to Leslie Moonves to leave the company. Remember, he's owed 180. So they really owe him 180. They threw the number out of 100 million. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Limited Brands, thought that was interesting, up 2% today. That one's been beaten down. Most analysts on this company have higher price targets than where it's currently trading. There we go. CVS was one that we pointed out yesterday, was looking good today, still looking good. There's a big storm coming through here. If I lose you, that'll just be it for the week. Constellation Brands continues to be in the news, their whole pot alcohol thing that they got going on there. And then Red Hat recovering a little bit. It's not looking too bad there. That's not the one I was thinking of. Southwest Airlines looking good as well. So that's basically all I have. Oh, Schwab was the other one. Schwab was the other broker. Anyways, can't make individual predictions. Kevin, sorry about that. I'm not Kevin. Yeah, Kevin. So Tesla, we covered the news on that one. Hopefully you got that one. Gotta ask, so don't understand virtually REITs going down, the entire REIT. That's all interest rates today, Mary. All interest rates, for sure. A spike in interest rates, bad for REITs, at least for today. Kevin says one day weed will be legal. I agree. Most of your stocks are from the Nasdaq. Henry, I got the feeling that they were. I've watched your posts here over the last couple days. I got the feeling you were a bit tech heavy. You're a brave soul. Oh, there we go. Awesome. Oscar says, is it time to be sitting on cash? Depends on what you're investing for. If you're a short-term investor, then the odds say you have the chance to get a discount this month going into the end of the year. If you're a long-term investor, don't stress about it. You're going to stress yourself. You hate losing money in your 401k. Well, it's been 9 years that you've been growing in your 401k. I think it's okay if there's a missed year or two in there, Rich. That's all I have to say. It's okay if the stock market is down a little bit. Just know the stats. Watch today's Doe Show video. We talked about knowing your investments. When you know that, you can sleep at night. Consumer discretionary, that's a gamble. I'm not sure how to say your name. Consumer staples have been perking up a little bit if you follow that. Today was sort of a flat day. Oops. Why can't I pull it up? There we go. Consumer discretionary has actually done pretty well if you look at just an overall chart of this year. If you think the retailers, now look at now wait, let me just stop for a second. If you gotta go, you gotta go. Have a great weekend. But if you're gonna look at consumer discretionary, you've got to be pretty particular about where you invest in that sector. To just buy a broad-based ETF, this is a great example when people say, I just buy an ETF and then everything goes great. This is a great example where to make a bet on consumer discretionary is going to be hit or miss. There are many retailers and companies out there that said this earnings season was not good. And then there were other ones that are dominating, they're killing it. So if you buy an exchange-traded fund to play consumer discretionary, you've got to make sure that it's heavy in those good names and not heavy in those other names that just told us that they're not doing very well. So a little homework there if you're thinking about consumer discretionary. I guess you guys are talking to each other. Any opinion on AMD? Hey, it's just hanging in there, right? I still think it's overpriced in the short term. It will pull back, Brendan. So if you have profits, everybody should have profits on that stock. I would consider taking something. Take some profit so when it pulls back, you don't feel so bad. The emotion will just be all out of that trade. Facebook, yeah, that continues to drop on that one. Look, the every trader is looking for 150 as the first target there, so I would expect Facebook to continue how to lower. Do you remember how long ago you did that video to show how to calculate your number, including the future value, not just the current value of money? We just did one the other day where we went through each assumption, Mike. Not yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. Check out the Doe Show yesterday. Oh, there you go. Yeah, you guys got this. Can you cover airlines like you did with REITs one day? Don't like them after years of hearing about bankruptcy. Airlines are tough. I agree, Mary. Yeah, we can go over those for sure, especially as oil gets more volatile and has been. Yeah. Yeah, I got an email today on General Motors. General Motors, by the way, the stock is trading at 34. And every analyst on General Motors feels that it's going to be higher. 23% higher is the first analyst recommendation. A lot of them have price recommendations in the 50s. Now, either A, that shows you that they are terribly wrong, right? But they haven't lowered those price targets. So if you follow the analysts and you like kind of looking at that stuff, I thought that was pretty interesting. I would not have noticed that unless that was brought up in an email, but hey, something you might check out. So we'll see. That's definitely a trade play. What do you think about Plug Power? That's all news driven. Yin Yang, Plug Power is news. If you feel like there's some news coming up, the stock will move. If you don't, the stock's just going to sit there and do nothing. News needs to happen on that stock to get some attention. All right, here we go. You could be wrong, but compared to many of my popular ETFs, company will almost have a 9% return off 4.10 I found a little odd. Yeah, I don't know what to say. That just sounds like a comment. Elon Musk spinning too many plates. I get it. I totally get it. Doesn't mean the guy should be out, doing what he did. But, I totally get it, man. You imagine running those companies? Can you imagine what he's going through? And to hear some of the comments of the people that left the company today and over the last couple days, their comments were, hey, it's tough to work with this guy. He's so focused on every last detail. Maybe he just has a problem letting go, letting other people do some of the work sometimes. So, I don't know. We'll see. Hey, anyways, going to wrap it up there. I really appreciate you guys watching. Remember, open house next week on Wednesday. I'll keep bugging you about it. But have a great weekend. We'll leave it with that and enjoy. See you then.
Hey, wait! Before you go watch one of our other great videos, have you had a chance to see our new Fin Tips videos? They focus on one topic at a time, covering investing, personal finance, and anything that can quickly help you with your dough. Best of all, we'll keep it real short, because we know time is money.